What's up, guys? Um, Today I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the next NASCAR game and the connection of the publisher behind it. A couple of you guys have sent me information about a new article that's out uh, about motorsports games, I think they're called. So thank you for the information. I did look into it. I read the article 3 times, and I'm going to skim through it again with you here. And the reason I had to read it several times is because I didn't feel like I got any real information. It is a very confusing article, and maybe some of you guys see something I don't see, or maybe you know something I don't know. And as always, I do appreciate information, or you guys, if you got to correct me on something, do it. So I'm here to give you my thoughts on this. Some of you guys did request that I look into this, and you wanted to know what I thought. So I'm going to read through this on my phone, so bear with me. And, maybe you guys could pick something up or read the article yourself. So without further ado, let's get into this. Okay? So in this article, Game Industry Biz, it's the same, the article that was sent to me by you guys or referred to, it's a different article, but it's the same article. It's just basically a different publication printing the same thing. So this is sort of like a press release. So it says at the title, media firm behind Autosport plans to change the landscape of racing games, right? So this media firm they're referring to is Motorsport Games, okay? Ex-Codemasters creative director Stephen Hood on how the new Motorsport Games group can disrupt the market. So this guy Stephen Hood, he's the guy, creative director or ex-creative director from Codemasters, which doesn't mean much to me. He's the spokesman for Motorsport Games, right? Motorsport Games has controlling interest of 704 Games. In essence, they are the publisher, right? So there's a difference between a developer and a publisher, and in many cases, the developer is the publisher, right? So there are companies where the game developer is also the publisher. In this case, Motorsport Games bought controlling interest in 704 Games back in 2018. So it'll pop up in the article. Let me just try to get through this article as best as I can. Last weekend at the Autosport International Media Company, at the Autosport International Media Company, Motorsport Network unveiled its games development operation. I don't know what Autosport International is. The publisher behind racing news sites such as Autosports. Okay, so it's like a racing news site. Motor One, and of course Motorsport, which is what we already knew. These are the people who bought controlling interest of 704 Games back in 2018. This has been primarily through esports tournaments. Okay, wait, I'm sorry, I skipped something. And of course, Motorsport has quietly been establishing a presence in the industry for a few years now. This has been primarily through esports tournaments, with the company defining video games as a fourth pillar to its business, alongside racing and automotive publications, plus its live events operations. So, it's a media company. They're involved in all kinds of, it's like a news outlet / information outlet for racing. All types of racing across the board. And live events operations. Things like esports and other competitive online gaming or racing crap. The owner of Motorsport Network, which is really what we've known them as, Motorsport Network, but Motorsport Games is, I guess, a division within that. It's the same fucking thing. The owner of Motorsport Network is so convinced that gaming is a natural extension of the business that for the last 2 years, a new division, Motorsport Games, which I just said, has been taking shape. Now unveiled, it encompasses development studio in Orlando, Florida, another in Moscow, a controlling stake in NASCAR developer 704 Games acquired in 2018. That's what I said. They have controlling interest. In other words, they're the boss. Motorsport Games is, I suppose, the publisher. They decide what 704 Games, as the developer, does with these games. They're the boss. A new game studio and an esports facility at the UK's famous Silverstone racetrack, plus an office in London that serves as the hub for the whole operation. So far, all I got from this is these guys are a media company who is also a publisher. They have their hands in a lot of sports games, and they have controlling interest in 704 NASCAR games. So it seems like they're more of a online competitive outlet. I'm a bit confused by all this. But why is a media company getting into games development? That's my fucking question. This is what confuses me. For Stephen Hood, who has been serving as a president for 18 months, it's much the same reason he came on board. A desire to do something different in the racing space. I still don't understand what this thing is that they're making it sound like they're changing the world. It's a whole new thing. It's just more like esports garbage. I think that, I joined because they weren't traditional games developers, he tells Game Industry Biz. Traditionally, a game developer acquires a license and just makes an official product. You get the rinse and repeat factory efforts. What we're able to do is suddenly get access to a lot more racing series, personalities, and the people within. Which for me is the color of motorsport. It's not just about getting the tracks and the cars. So it's a lot of marketing bullshit. Yeah, they're saying, well, okay, we're not just here to make sure we get officially licensed tracks and cars for your particular, sport, but also the people within these sports, they're going to be part of this. I don't know how. I don't care. The work we're doing with NASCAR, for example, means it's not just the official NASCAR game. I can put the legend icons in there. I've got NASCAR's involvement and a joint venture with the Race Team Alliance in the U.S. We work with the drivers. I can get the crew chiefs in there. I get access to the personalities that I wouldn't be able to do at a standard developer. I don't see what's so fucking amazing about this. And also, other sports titles do a similar thing. They have licenses and they get access to actual people in these sports. How do you think they render the image of these athletes? They're just, I guess, they're trying to make it sound like they're deeper in it, where they can really get better information to create a better product. I mean, it's still a lot of nothing. Okay. The doors are open because of the size of the network, so I have new opportunities. I don't see how that is going to give us better NASCAR games, but I'm open to suggestions. Naturally, having a direct channel to media outlets will be an advantage when it comes to reaching the targeted audience, but there are also plans to build a community-focused hub for everything Motorsport Games is doing. This would be a stretch for a traditional developer, but Motorsport Network has an array of editorial, video, social media, and other teams that the games division can draw on. The finished site will feature news, reviews, video content, podcasts, and not just on the company's own products, but even those of its rivals. Again, this is nothing but media, online, social media garbage. It's not. None of this has anything to do with the actual video games, or whether they're going to be deeper, more immersive, or address all of the things that are missing up to this point. It's not just a motorsport games dominated platform. This is about racing space and blurring the lines between real motorsport. Okay, it just stops there. Our platform gives us the opportunity to move away from more of the expected standard of autosport and present real world motorsport news in a very different format and bleed into the game's operation. So what's going on in the real world endurance championship or IndyCar, and how does that work with our video game properties? I don't know. I don't understand how this really is going to work. I don't know. Of course, as the Games Hub will inevitably show, racing fans aren't exactly starved for choice when it comes to video games. There's Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, Forza, Horizon spin-offs, Codemasters' three-pronged attack of Formula One, Dirt and Grid, and the myriad of motorcycle racing games from Milestone, to name a few. Motorsport space is already crowded, so how can a newcomer, even with its impressive connections, ever hope to compete? I don't think it's this way, but let's read on. It's a good question, and since the focus on motorsport means we'll only be making racing games, you could easily argue we'll be cannibalizing our own market. Hood adds. But the answer that I have to that is we are willing to do things differently. We've made many of those games. The people I have in the organization and those that are joining over the coming days, weeks, and months are some of the key individuals behind a lot of those recognizable brands. There were limitations at the time, and we are prepared to do things differently that I think will result in better experiences. Again, lots of words, lots of talk, a lot of nothing. No, I don't have the Formula One license. I'm not chasing the rally license. There was an opportunity there, but I don't think it's right for us. Yes, we do have NASCAR, which is big in the US, but then we also have good relationships with other motorsport series. Codemasters aren't going to make a British touring car game, but I think there's a market that the market is deserving of one. I don't even care if you're not a fan of these series. We have the capability to make players fans of motorsport series they probably didn't even recognize to begin with. I'm not just selling a NASCAR game to a NASCAR fan or an IndyCar game to an IndyCar fan. I'm going to sell it to sports fans, racing fans. The very niche market is tied up right now. We're going to try to do something that will appeal to a much wider market of gamers and motorsports enthusiasts. The proof will be in 2021 when our first internal projects start to hit the shop floor. Then in the article there's a huge picture of some racing tournament with a bunch of people watching a bunch of gamers sitting at a stationary simulator rigs, racing online. I don't know what game, but whatever. As Hood mentions, he has made these games before. He spent more than 5 years working at Codemasters on various racing titles, and another 5 at Sony Liverpool working on projects such as F1 2001 for the PS2's launch. And he's been building a team of similarly experienced racing veterans around him, and the company's headcount is now at 50. Recruitment efforts are ongoing with plans to reach 75 to 100 staff by the end of the year. Although Hood stresses the focus is on hiring the right people and not just putting bums on seats. Beyond that, growth will be conservative. Hood's own experience working at studios with 200 or more people have convinced him that it's impossible to get that large a team thinking or pulling in the same direction. Motorsport Games the first release will be the next NASCAR title. So officially Motorsport Games is the publisher of the next NASCAR game, continuing 704 Games' popular racing series. But it's also planning to release new games each year that serve different sports. This will be on a case-by-case basis, with Hood emphasizing that we're not out to make 15 distinct different racing games that we release each year, but we want to change the landscape. I'm still really confused about all this jargon. What does it fucking mean? It does seem to me like this Motorsports Games thing, publishing media conglomerate, whatever the fuck it is. It does sound to me like they got their hands in too many things. NASCAR will continue to be made available for the current consoles, but Hood says nothing is off limits for future releases. The new company is already looking at Switch, mobile, and even streaming platforms like Stadia. Although the team is conscious of stretching itself too thin. Really? That sounds like complete contradiction to me. You just announced all this shit that you're trying to do, but we're consciously aware that of stretching ourselves too thin. This is very confusing to me. To that end, it's focusing on Xbox One and PS4, but is inevitably gearing up for the Xbox Series X, the Xbox Tissue Box, and the PS5. I've been talking about this for years. I'll talk more about this later. But in fact, Hood and his colleagues have already met with Microsoft team, who were reportedly impressed by what Motorsport Games plans to bring to the genre. We've needed the power of the new generation of consoles in order to blur the lines between high-end PC simulations and what we at Motorsports Games are trying to build. These aren't toys. They're going to be authentic racing games that appeal to a great many people. I don't understand. It's like, are you even paying attention to the issues that have been a problem for years now? These games are outdated. They're not even on par with modern day games, and you're talking about... Let me stop. The promise of authenticity can be something of a barrier to the mainstream audience Motorsports Games is hoping to reach. For some, authenticity equals simulation, which requires a knowledge and appreciation of how physics really apply to racing. It's easier to pull off that perfect drift in an arcade-style title like Need for Speed than it is in a realistic Project Cars. How can the developer strike the balance between authentic and accessible? Okay, another screenshot. PS5 and Xbox Series X will enable the team to show off its true vision for the future of racing games, both through the annual NASCAR series and new titles. They haven't even been able to maximize what the current gen consoles are capable of. These games still look like they are from the PS3 generation, and they're talking about... Alright. I don't believe in arcade or simulation for Motorsport Series. I believe in you having a degree of control over the authenticity of the product. If a racing game is authentic, it doesn't mean it's difficult to drive. A simulation portrays things that happen in the real world. I actually find sometimes it's difficult to play games that are not based on reality. Oh my god, there's so much drivel in this article. Conversely, Hood argues that entirely arcade-like games can be highly unrealistic and require players to learn specific mechanics of that title. Motorsports Games will be aiming for a sweet spot between the two. Isn't that what they've been... 704 has supposedly been doing all this time? More about the sport than being an elite driver. Players all want to feel like that hero driver. There are just different ways of doing that. Well, there are different ways of doing that, which 704 has yet to do at all. It's easier said than done, but many of us have been doing that for a number of years, and we're out to turn the tables on the previous employees. That's where this article ends. I know that it's hard to follow everything I was reading, but in all honesty, it's better for you to read the article yourself. I read the article several times. I just went through it again. It is really... Let me take my glasses off. It's really a big, jarbled mess of bullshit marketing. A lot of talk, not really directly addressing what their vision is. What is it they're trying to do? It sounds to me like this company or publisher is trying to continue to do this esports shit. That's basically what they focus. They got their hands in a lot of different games, and I have nowhere in the article is any discussion about how they're going to create a deeper and more immersive offline racing experience. It's all about this fucking focus on competition, like competitive online racing, and everything you see, it has to do with tournaments of one kind or another. They talk about the next generation of consoles. I've been talking about this for years. At least 2 years now, and I've said it, that at some point, they're going to have to start working on that next generation of NASCAR games, and they haven't even given us a fully fleshed out game yet. The esports side of things at 704 shut down, but here we are reading an article no less than just a couple of weeks later, and it's all about this changing the landscape of racing games. None of this has anything to do with giving us a fully fleshed out NASCAR game. 704 is just a game developer now. They have nothing to do with the publishing, and Motorsport Games has controlling interest, meaning they're the boss. They're the ones who decide what this game's going to be and what they're going to focus on. So it looks even worse than before, because it does sound to me like they don't plan on going away. They're planning on sticking around and trying to continue pushing forward with this product. But the direction, I'm not hearing anything about offline content or how to create a deeper and more immersive career mode. Where I've been telling you guys that the biggest problems have to do with off track, not on track. The game, NASCAR Heat 4, in my opinion, already provides a very good racing experience, like offline. The AI is pretty decent. The game sounds great. Is it on par with current generation racing games? No, it's not. But overall, I can jump in. I can run a single race, and I'll have fun with it. It's entertaining. It's competitive. You can tailor it to your experience, and I'm okay with that. It's the rest of the game that's lacking. It's bare bones. There's nothing going on. I don't see anything in this article that remotely addresses any of that. It's a very jarbled, big, just like this, like they just jumbled up all these talking points that don't mean anything and put it all in one article, and it's hard to know what the fuck's going on. Who's, making the decisions there? It appears to me that this Stephen Hood guy and this Motorsport Games, it's their vision now. Whatever this fucking means about changing the landscape, I don't think it's bullshit. It's more pushing esports and pro league garbage. More of the things that are not going to sell these games and have proven to be a failure. The amount of people that care about that shit is so tiny that it's not worth talking about. It's not going to drive sales. And a lot of the articles contradictory. It just seems to me more than ever that this company I don't have a clue what's going on there, and they haven't been able to convey any clarity. So you go out and you do this article, and it doesn't. Anybody that can honestly say they fully understand what this article's about, credit to you. I have no clue, and I've gone through this article repeatedly, and it's agonizing because there's nothing in this article that remotely interests me or gets me excited. So those are my thoughts on the article. I just don't feel positive I'm sorry, guys. The Titans just started the game. I hope they win. I need some good news today. But there's nothing positive that makes me feel like, hey, things are looking bright. I want, you know, 704 briefly after Zane, I forgot his name, Zane, that guy Zane left, and they announced that esports was shutting down. They, that little statement about the game is still going forward, and they did briefly mention that their plans are to provide a game that has more of a race day feel on Sunday, and loosely interpreted, I'm hoping that means that they're going to finally start fleshing out the rest of the game and addressing this bare bones feel to the game. The game basically feels like a fucking mobile game. It's only when you're on the track and in a race where the game does shine. It's a good, solid gameplay experience. As for everything else, it's just I'm just sick and tired of this shit. I'm barely holding on. And there's a part of me that is just hoping now that these guys just fucking collapse and go away. This whole fucking the Pro League is still a thing apparently. NASCAR does have to take some blame. They have no business being involved with any of this. Just give these guys a license and let them make the best possible game. But NASCAR is also an impediment to creating the type of game that we haven't seen in 15 fucking years. You can't even fucking blow your nose developing a NASCAR game without asking for some kind of permission or making sure that you dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's and everything is, acceptable. It's just, man, I don't see a bright future ahead. Personally, man, I would rather that these guys, and if they're gonna keep making these games, you got the next gen consoles coming out at the end of this year. I think they're late. They're really late to the game. AAA game developers, they've already had these next gen console development kits for maybe the past 2 years, and they're already preparing for the next gen. These guys, you're not gonna. I just don't see how you're gonna see a next gen product of next gen quality for at least 3 years. And I'm being nice. Look at these games now. They've all felt like last gen games. I've been very kind to 704, and I think that with the limited resources, they've done a commendable job. They've done the best they could, but I want to hear Motorsports Games, whoever the fuck these people are, talk about hiring a lot of help for 704 or something. Are they just going to let 704 develop the game as a tiny group of guys? I don't get it. And from what I feel, my feeling is they're going to start focusing more and more on online multiplayer. And I know some of you guys, you want to hear that, but I don't, for me, I got to be honest, I'm only speaking for myself. I couldn't care less. If you can't deliver a fully fleshed out offline game with a deep and immersive career mode, I mean, for God's sake, we just started getting stats in the game like 2 years ago, and even that isn't done well. We still want basic features, and I don't get it, man. It's like we really got the short end of the stick as NASCAR fans. We haven't seen a really great NASCAR game in a long time. And the past 10 years, going back to the beginning of Eutechnics, it's been absolute garbage for the most part. And yeah, NASCAR Heat 4 is a decent racer. I'm happy with the racing. Is it perfect? No. But man, it's just, I don't want to fucking hear another word about fucking Pro League or esports or changing the landscape. And then you're talking about all these fucking games I couldn't care less about. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the article. I really tried to get a good understanding of what the fuck they're talking about, and I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's a lot of fluff, marketing fluff, and this Motorsport Games, they're a fucking media company, so they're all about social media. They're all about, I guess, online competitive racing. They're still talking about esports, so that's another confusing thing. This esports thing shut down for the NASCAR games, or has it? It sounds to me like they haven't given up on that idea and they want to revisit it. If you don't increase the size of the group of people working on the NASCAR games, they're not going to get better. At least to the point where it's a fully fleshed out game, or that it meets modern day standards. I don't know what else to say. It's, unless somebody comes out and officially gives us a rundown of what this next game is going to be and what their vision is for the future, I don't feel good about this at all. This article doesn't give you that. It gives you a lot of fluff, a lot of bullshit, a lot of marketing, and none of it is very specific. So I have to deduce from it what I can, and I see nothing but bullshit. So I do want to thank you guys for keeping me up to date. I wouldn't have known about the article if it wasn't for you guys. I'm sorry. I wish I could give you something positive from the article, but I just can't. Maybe one of you guys can find something positive in it, or maybe there's something here I'm not seeing, and you can enlighten me on it. It's just very bleak right now. I'm not sure we're going to see a really good NASCAR game for a long time. And if I do want to say something else before I forget my point. Every once in a while, somebody will chime in about, you need to go to iRacing and blah, blah, blah. And they're coming up with the AI. And I'm just going to say, I have no interest in iRacing. Even if they get, AI in the mix, iRacing is a service. It's not a game. You have to pay monthly fees. You got to pay for it's expensive, and it's not even so much that it's not providing what a video game provides. It's online racing against people, and if this AI thing works out, okay, you're gonna get to race AI. Which we can already do in NASCAR Heat 4. Is it? Yeah, I get it. iRacing is going to be much more advanced, and the physics and blah blah. I don't care. It's not enough to get me to go and join iRacing. I have no interest in iRacing. I couldn't care less about iRacing. I damn sure am not interested in racing online until they get a better structured system where you can run and operate a league fully supported by stats, and you can sign people up and create your own schedule, and it's a rigid format instead of what you have now where you gotta, it's just fucking, it's fucked up. Online racing, just a bunch of people wrecking each other now, doing a 5% sprint at the same fucking tracks over and over. I fucking hate online racing. It's not enjoyable to me. And even if iRacing gets this AI, at best, it's going to provide me with a similar experience to what I already have. Which I've already said, NASCAR Heat 4, that's the one thing it does really well. I can jump in, I can run a race against AI, which is really solid AI. It's not perfect, but provides a really solid racing experience. I can jump in, scratch that itch, and the game works pretty well for the most part. So it does provide me some temporary enjoyment. It just doesn't have anything else going for it. And so why would I join iRacing? Just to do that? So I just wanted to get that out the way. And I'm not upset with people who bring it up, right? I appreciate you guys. I get it. And if you enjoy it, I'm happy for you. Just, it's not for me. It just isn't. I just want a fucking video game. What's wrong? I'm sorry. What's wrong with that? I just want a fucking video game. Yeah, I want the presentation. I want all the extra little things. The little stories. The fucking, the narrative. A sense of accomplishment. There's no sense of accomplishment here. I've got $250 million in career mode. It just doesn't mean anything. Nothing happens. There's no relationships with, other drivers or your owner or your crew chief. There's no commercial endorsements. There's no dealing with, contracts in a deep and meaningful way. It's just so fucking outdated. The game is only good to jump in and run single races. That's where it's good, and that provides me what I want in terms of just getting in and the gameplay and the racing. But I'm not going to join iRacing for that. iRacing is not going to give you anything else, and that's the difference between iRacing and a video game. When you play the Formula 1 series, does it extremely well. I don't play that game, but I've seen plenty of footage, and I've seen other people talk about it, and I've read about it. So that game seems to be exactly what I want this NASCAR series of games to be. But I don't see anything here that leads me to believe that, that's, going to be the case. These guys just, I don't get it. They're trying to make something here where it's just going to be a bunch of tournaments and the game's going to be a portal to that. I just couldn't care less. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they come out at some point and discuss what they're going to do with this next game. This Motorsport Games company, they just got their hands in too many things. They got too many fires going. And even that's confusing. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let me know what your thoughts are. As always, keep giving me information when you find something. Let me know. I always try to look into things, and I do appreciate each and every one of you guys who do follow me, and we keep this thing going. And that's it. So, excuse me. I look forward to your comments. Later.